It all ends now.
But does it really? Why don't we talk about it? Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at CinemaBlend, with a spoiler-free review of the new film Halloween Ends, directed by David Gordon Green and starring Jamie Lee Curtis. This film, which is coming to theaters and Peacock, is being billed as the final confrontation between the classic Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, who has been tormenting her for the better part of 40 years. Now, as I mentioned, this is a spoiler-free review. I'm going to do my best to talk about the film and whether you should go out of your way to see it without giving away specific plot details. If you want to tiptoe into a reaction to Halloween Ends that protects all of the biggest secrets, then this is the video for you. So let's get it underway with our spoiler-free review of Halloween Ends.
Come on, let's go.
Okay, so as you probably know, the point that I'm making right off the bat is that this is not the Halloween movie that you're expecting. You probably are going into this thinking that it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers for the duration of the film, and that is not the case. Director David Gordon Green is trying to go forward and tell a much bigger story happening here, centered around new characters that we haven't yet seen in Halloween, the reboot that came out in 2018, and its immediate sequel, Halloween Kills. And if you think about the way that Halloween and Halloween Kills completely differed from each other, and the fact that Halloween Kills was one of those movies that never had Laurie and Michael Myers together in the same movie, that's kind of the difference that Halloween Ends is taking in its approach to telling its story. Yes, it takes place after the events of Halloween Kills, but there's a 4-year time jump from the time that Halloween Kills ended with the town in an uproar, and where the action picks up from this movie. And you'll actually sort of spend the first couple of minutes of this movie figuring out, like, where does this fall into the story that we were being told? We do catch up with Laurie, and she is still dealing with the trauma of surviving the initial attack of Michael Myers. And we've seen different stages of Laurie over the course of this new trilogy. In the first one, she was definitely a spirit of vengeance. That carried over into the second one, but she was also very protective of her family. And in this one, it's not that she's necessarily content with where she is in life, but since the 4 years have passed, Laurie has found the treatment that she has needed for her trauma, and she's almost at peace of where she has been with Michael Myers over the years. Now, that's not going to last for very long. This is still a Halloween movie. But I do want to let you guys know going into it that you need to sort of adjust your expectations, in that this is not an immediate sequel to Halloween Kills. That time jump allows it to approach the material from a completely different perspective, and I admired that, but I want you guys to know going into it that it's not a traditional slasher sequel in the way that some of the Nightmare films or the Friday the 13th movies picked up right where the previous ones left off.
It's been 4 years since Michael Myers vanished without a trace. Something feels different. He's more dangerous.
Now, in addition to that, and sort of building off of that point, one of the things that I really admired about this new Halloween movie is that while it circumvented the expectations that I had coming into it, thinking it was going to be primarily a Laurie versus Michael Myers movie, bringing the franchise to a close, instead, David Gordon Green, much like he did in Halloween Kills, explores some really interesting topics over the course of Halloween Ends that I didn't expect to find in this movie, but I appreciated them when they were there. Without getting into some of the ways that he does this, he talks a bit about how the presence of Michael Myers in the town of Haddonfield has an effect that sort of ripples through the entire community. And some of this was addressed in Kills, which led to the mob mentality of everybody sort of rising up to defeat the evil that is Michael Myers. But Halloween Ends posits this theory that because Michael Myers has been a plague that's almost poisoned the minds of the community of Haddonfield, that there's no way for this community to ever really move forward. And in some instances, there was some really interesting angles presented in this film where Laurie is almost accused of being not necessarily an accomplice of Michael Myers, but because she poked the devil in the first movie, that she has brought some of that evil onto Haddonfield. And these are big topics that I really didn't expect Halloween Ends to address, especially in a movie that's being billed as the final chapter of this saga. But it's been really cool, I think, and admirable that David Gordon Green, in all three of the Halloween movies that he's done up to this point, has come at the franchise from completely different psychological angles. And in this one, I loved a lot of the big topics that he brought up. Some of it also gets around to how Haddonfield and the community might be responsible for the birth of an evil. And it's not just Michael Myers. There's some other things that are waiting for you in this film. But I thought that that was a really, really interesting idea to bring up in a horror sequel like this. And again, it prevents it from being sort of a traditional follow-up to the movie that we saw in Halloween Kills. But so far over the course of this trilogy, David Gordon Green has proven that he's not necessarily doing a traditional trilogy of films. He wants them to sort of not really be segmented the way that like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was. But these are definitely independent features that stand alone under the umbrella of Halloween. And I think they're going to have fans discussing them and how they play out for years to come.
What are you going to do when Michael comes back for you? Because he is coming.
Now, I do want to say that I think that people going into this movie may end up being disappointed if you're thinking that it's going to be the end of the Halloween franchise. There is, without giving away spoilers, the confrontation between Laurie and Michael Myers that has sort of been building up over the course of the 40 years. And you do see this in the trailer where there's a fight between the two of them in a house, and that is included in the movie. It brings closure to a certain extent to the Laurie Strode story, but the reason why I wonder if this is ever going to be the end of the Halloween franchise is that in this movie it talks very much that like, and it was sort of hinted at in Kills, like Michael Myers isn't necessarily a person, he's a supernatural being, and the idea of Michael Myers can be recycled, and that's been discussed in this franchise over and over again. Like, who necessarily is Michael Myers? Is it a person? Is it a being? Is it just a sense? He's been called the Shape over the course of his entire life, and it's lends itself to the fact that he's sort of malleable, that he can be any sort of person as long as it's a threatening force that's coming after somebody in Haddonfield. I don't think Universal is ever going to get rid of the idea of Halloween movies, and at some point they'll probably figure out a way to relaunch the franchise with someone wearing a Michael Myers mask and going after somebody new. However, I do think this is the end of the road for Laurie Strode, and I don't see Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to her part anytime soon. I think this movie will deliver the end of that character, but if people are looking for really a satisfying culmination to the way that the Halloween movie has set up its arc, it may be a little bit disappointing because of the bigger ideas that Halloween Ends brings up and spends time exploring. But when you get to the meat of it, that confrontation is waiting for you, and we'll be there when you guys want to go check it out.
Maybe the only way he can die is if I die too.
So let me get to my star rating, which is a very strong 3 out of 5. I know that sounds a little bit low, and I overall liked this movie, but there is definitely a sense while you're sitting through it of, what is this movie trying to do and where is it going? And shouldn't we be doing something else? And this is harder for me to sort of get into specifics because you'll see how the story plays out. And there are going to be times when you're watching it when you're just like, I thought this was a Halloween movie, and it is. But it isn't. And I think that that's going to make some people really interested, and I think it's going to make some people really, really frustrated. I admire what David Gordon Green did. It took me a little while to sort of get into the pace of what he was trying to do with this film. It starts very, very strong, and then sort of starts to unravel the story that it wants to tell. I just don't think it's going to be the story that diehard Halloween fans want to get, which is a 2-hour Laurie versus Michael story, and that's not what this is. So go into it with some moderate expectations. And come back here after you've seen it, because I really do want to hear how it plays for you guys. I'm fascinated to see what the feedback is going to be on Halloween Ends once audiences are able to see it. Where can you tell me your reactions? Well, you can go to the comments down below, and that's where I'm going to read all your reviews of Halloween Ends once you guys are able to see it on Peacock or in theaters. In the meantime, keep it locked here on CinemaBlend for all of our entertainment content. The best way for you to keep up with that is by hitting subscribe, turning on your notifications, and coming around to visit us here on CinemaBlend every single day.